Feeling so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless, where science, spirituality, and sustainability are brunch buddies. I'm Delanie Fischer, and details about today's topic can be found in the episode description. Returning listeners, if an episode of Self-Helpless has supported you in some way, a quick 5-star rating or review, if you haven't left one already, honestly keeps this indie podcast alive amidst the big old budget behemoths out there. So thank you for feeding the algorithm a little treat for me. Ad-free episodes are now on Patreon at patreon.com/selfhelpless, and info about some free goodies will be shared in the outro. Okay, it's podcast time. All the decisions that you've made in your own life. I mean, leaving a marriage, getting remarried, even stepping away from certain religious practices that no longer felt like a fit for you, starting a business, making decisions about co-parenting. What is the importance of learning the skills to be decisive and also just to understand what's driving our decisions in the first place?
We get so hung up on whether this is right or wrong or good or bad, or what does this mean about me if I make this decision? And it keeps us stuck often for years, like
Right.
months, years, whatever. So no matter
Mhm.
what it is that we're navigating, I mean, I work with so many women who are going through big life transitions, whether that's divorce or trying to decide, am I staying in this relationship or not? Or career decisions, or whatever it is, parenting decisions. And it's in the back of our heads. So whether you're like consciously thinking about this or not all the time, it is keeping us disconnected from our life, from our partners, from our kids, from ourselves. And we tell ourselves, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that important. It's not whatever. It is keeping you from being able to embrace what is truly there for you. It is keeping you from having a life of fulfillment, a life that feels good, that you don't feel stuck in all the time. And that's why I
Yeah.
say your next best decision, because I don't believe that it's a right decision. I don't believe that it's bad. I don't believe like any of the things. I think decision making is neutral. And so there's just so much conditioning in our brains that gets us thinking like, no, it has to be this way. My life has to look this way.
Right.
And sharing my story of, having a gay ex-husband, somebody that came out, and I stayed married to him for 5 years after I knew he was gay, and had a
Yeah.
child with him, and made all these decisions that people were like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? But it was what was best for me, and it was what felt right for me at the time, and ultimately, therefore, I believe it was what is best for my daughter. And people will come at me for that, of like, you think it was good to get divorced, like you think it was the best decision to have a child with a gay man. Like, I've heard it all. I get it. I understand where people are coming from, but also those things are what felt right for me. There's so much power in trusting ultimately our gut and making decisions based on that. Now, we're also going to play a little bit into what is going to work for us, but also
Right.
I think we get so hung up on like the logical side of things that keeps us from doing what is actually best for us.
I really appreciate you mentioning basically what you said is sometimes your next right decision does not look like the perfect situation, right?
No.
It is just a step in some kind of a direction that gives
Yes.
you a little bit of momentum. And I know that some people are very quick to maybe judge themselves. Let's say that they leave a relationship and that their next relationship doesn't work out and they start second guessing, oh my gosh, I made the wrong decision. I shouldn't have done that. But no, just because the very next thing didn't work out, maybe like ideally in your head the way you thought it
Mhm.
would, doesn't mean it wasn't a stepping stone to something else.
It is all information. Like, we get so hung up on, oh, that was the wrong thing to do. That means that I don't know how to pick a partner. And I just call bullcrap on that. I'm like, no, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything. That means that you are gathering information. And when we can look at it that way, as this is the information I needed on the other side of this, we don't sit in this spiral of beating ourselves up or continually rethinking or over processing. Instead, we're like, since we're using this example,
Yeah.
I can see how I knew it was wrong, but I wanted, and this is why so often we stay in relationships that don't serve us, I wanted the proof. I wanted the proof
Ah,
that there was something wrong with the relationship. I wanted to be able to clearly know why this person wasn't the right fit for me. And it keeps
Yeah.
us in some really crappy situations. But when we can start to see that like I knew at this point, this wasn't the best thing for me. I knew it didn't feel right, but I kept moving forward because there wasn't like some glaring thing I could point to saying, this is the problem. And people
Right.
look at my relationship and they're like, with my ex-husband, they're like, there was a glaring problem. Like you had this thing. And also for me, it felt best to stay for a while. Like, and that's okay. Some of us, like, there is something to glean out of that. And it allowed me to take ownership of that decision and have power to say, now what do I do with this? I
Right.
stayed in this because it felt best to me at the time and it felt right for me. And I just used air quotes around right. And so now I have the power to determine, what do I do with this relationship now? Do I let this be something where I'm filled with bitterness and anger and resentment and beat myself up and shame and guilt, like all of these things for the rest of my life? Or do I now take this and what I learned and take it into my next relationship and, dating process to figure out what I want now, what feels good, or even do I want another relationship after this?
Right.
And this is why I gaslit myself basically into staying, because I needed this proof. I have a whole chapter in this book that I'm putting out that is all about this idea of waiting for proof, especially as women. We are like, I have to justify my actions. I have to know why this isn't right. And I always tell my daughters, I'm like, bullshit. You do not need that proof. If you feel like something is off, you are done. You get yourself out of the situation. Don't wait for the proof, because it gets us into really crappy situations.
And somebody could easily hear your story and think, well, that's really obvious. You go when your husband comes out, right? But if you plug in, let's say somebody's tuning in right now and they know something about their relationship, plug that situation, your situation, into whatever
Yeah.
their thing is, because yes, your husband came out, but you also mentioned being best friends. You had a life together. You had, this history. You guys were sexually active, right? Like all these things
Yes.
that maybe your husband is not gay, but fill in some other thing. And what is keeping you there? Both things can be present. So I really appreciate
Yep.
you sharing that. I want to hit on the point that you mentioned of like, when you know something is off, like you're done, when you get that feeling. But let's talk about the people who are maybe too quick to run at the first sign of discomfort. They don't stay in any relationship very long or whatever because it's the first thing that isn't perfect. They're out of there. Or it's maybe a job, the first thing that isn't perfect, they're out of there. Or location, maybe where they live. So
Yeah.
what is the happy medium here? Knowing when, it's time to stick it out or go.
Yeah, they think they are really powerful decision makers because they make them so quickly. But I think oftentimes in those situations, they know how to make decisions for other people. They know how to make decisions based on their conditioning. They haven't learned how to sit in any sort of discomfort. So sometimes maybe there is a good, healthy relationship, but because this one thing is off, they're like, nope, I'm out. And so we have to find this place where we understand how long to continue forward and like what discomfort is actually safe to sit in and appropriate to sit in, and
Right.
what is the discomfort that is like, hell no, like I'm not doing this, I'm not going to continue forward. And they're two different things, but we have to understand how each of them feels to us. And that's something, that I walk through in the book of like, how do you understand these two kind of conflicting discomforts? Are you just so afraid to fail that you just end things before they fail? Or
Mhm.
are you really seeing a red flag here of like something is wrong? And
Yeah.
I'm going to tap into my second marriage here as an example
Yeah.
because
Yes, please
so
do.
I met my husband, my current husband, when he was going on a mountain bike ride with my then ex-husband. So they had kind of like had mutual friends, and they would leave, ironically enough, from my apartment complex to go mountain bike riding. And I knew they were going, and so I took my daughter up to see her dad as he was leaving on this mountain bike ride. And I knew the instant that he introduced me to Matt, my current husband, that I was going to marry Matt. Like there was
Crazy.
this
Yeah.
deep-seated feeling in me, and it's crazy to me that we are
Wild.
actually married. We got married very quickly after that, and it was a complete disaster. It was a mess. And a year in, I left. Here's the thing that didn't feel safe is I was losing myself. I was completely living into what I call the shoulds of how this was supposed to look like. And it was because of, his issues that he was processing through, that he thought he'd process through because of his first marriage. And then as soon as we got married, it brought it all up. And therefore I was feeling deep insecurity in our marriage because I'm living into these shoulds of what a stepmom should look like, of what a good wife should look like. And I was trying to prove my worth to everybody else. It is not a healthy relationship if you don't feel safe to be yourself, if you don't feel safe to feel your feelings, if you don't feel safe to be able to express concerns. And that is where I was at. It's not like physically, I knew this man would never harm me. Like there was safety physically, emotionally, I did not feel safe. That's partially why I stayed married to my ex-husband for as long as I did, is because I felt emotionally and physically safe with him. And Matt, my now husband that I'm talking about that I left, he also expressed later on, he's like, I didn't feel safe. And therefore, I was trying to end the marriage as fast as possible. I wanted it to fail. And so I was doing the things to make it fail. By the end of the week, I left on a Friday. By Sunday night, or Sunday afternoon, I had a full-time amazing job. I had a place for my daughter and I to live, and everything laid out to successfully leave this relationship, to feel confident in leaving. And I checked in with myself and I'm like, I can't do this. I don't want to leave this man. I committed to these things like all in this weekend. I made these decisions quickly.
Yeah.
But it also gave me the information I needed to know that, no, I want to try this again, but this is the way I have to do it. I'm going back, releasing all of these shoulds that I've put on myself of how I should show up as a stepmom, how I should show up in a second marriage, how I should prove myself in all of these things. And I'm going to show up for myself first and what feels right and start putting some boundaries in place. I created safety within our relationship for me. And it started to create safety for my husband. Like, oh, I'm not responsible for this woman's happiness. He felt confident in knowing I was going to say exactly what I needed. Matt and I were coming at this of two different things. He was like, I'm going to fail and I'm going to fail fast. I'm going to find something wrong and I'm going to be out. And I was like, no, I am moving forward until I hit a point where I didn't feel safe being myself. And then I was like, I can't do that. And came back with the knowledge I was going to create the safety. We've now been married over 12 years, and it is basically everything I could have hoped for in our relationship. Does it look exactly like how I envisioned? No, but the safety is there and the communication is there and the pride and joy that we feel in each other is there. And so I think, understanding that, where am I letting some should keep me from having a good, healthy relationship? Where am I letting this one thing that I think is how it's supposed to look take over all of my relationships? Where's my gut telling me I need to stay? And where am I fabricating issues and problems in my life so that I'm not successful, so I'm not having the things I want?
I love this idea of safe discomfort, right? And being able to tell the difference for yourself in order to make decisions. And sometimes it can be hard to pinpoint your feelings if you're not used to doing so. I know
Yeah.
the kind of things that have helped me in the past have been asking myself questions like, if I couldn't tell anyone about this, would I still do it? Or for somebody tuning in, maybe it's, if I couldn't post this on social media, would I still do it?
Oh my
Those
gosh.
kinds of
Yes.
questions can help us gauge if we're doing something for external validation or because we genuinely want to do the thing. Perhaps it's a bit of both. But if you notice that you are doing a lot of things just because of how it looks versus how it actually is for you, chances are you're going to be miserable. You can also do things like make a mark in your calendar at the end of each day, maybe, with a little happy face or sad or neutral face. So you can start auditing how you actually feel day to day and take a look at any patterns you notice, maybe over the course of a month or a few months, since our brains signal negative memories as more important. So I know for me, it's very helpful to make my feelings and thoughts tangible so I can actually accurately see what my experience is versus what I think it is.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you might think you really dislike your job, but find you're actually pretty content at your job. Let's say, 80% of the time because you've actually done an exercise like that. And you find that you can maybe problem solve for the 20% that you're really hating, maybe by spreading out your work a little bit more or delegating or trading tasks or I don't
Oh,
know, having
yes.
something to look forward to when you get home on the harder days, or maybe you realize that you really are miserable like 60% of the time or more, and there's only a little that you can do to make your job more enjoyable. Or maybe you can't do anything. Stuff like that can help you realize that maybe it's time to start looking for another job because I'm actually seeing the percentage of my happiness or unhappiness level. Stuff like that can really help us become either more grateful for what we already have or motivated to make a change in a certain area. So I love little exercises like that a
Yes.
lot. Are there other practical things that you both did, like when you came back to the relationship? You mentioned, like, I can't pick up your kids. I got to go get my kid or whatever. Like the
Mhm.
practical boundaries each of you set, or any other examples like that that really made a
Yeah.
big difference for your communication?
I firmly believe it's like building a muscle of understanding that I am going to speak up for myself. And so when I tell people like a starting point for building this muscle, I'm like, I want you to embrace there's two challenges I give them, either a should challenge where you identify one should a day. And should is like an easy word to pick up on as
Right.
to where you're placing judgment on your life. That's why my book is called Shove Your Shoulds, because of that fact. Like
Yeah.
it is one place that you can say, oh, a should is placing judgment on something I feel I need to do or something that I feel somebody else should be doing. You are just acknowledging it. You don't need to do anything with it. Just identify this should and let it be seen. I always think about like AA, acknowledgement is the first step. And then we move on to what I call trust your gut challenge. You are going to identify one thing a day that you are going to do for you because it feels right for you. And we're going to develop this muscle and start building it.
Yeah.
And like things like how I want to do my hair. What clothes do I want to put on my body? What do I want to eat for lunch? What workout is actually going to feel good for me and my body today? Not that what I've been told I should do or how it should look.
Yeah.
So I came back to our relationship with these small shifts in our relationship to begin with. Because if I went in and said, I'm changing this and I'm not doing this anymore and all this, it would have blown things up. Like neither of our nervous systems could have handled that much shift in one moment.
Right.
And so it did start as those small things as I can't do X, Y, and Z because of this. And you don't have to justify it. You don't have to say why. You
Right.
just get to share that. At one point, my stepkids were at a school where they couldn't have they only had cold lunch. Like they had to take a packed lunch to school. There was no hot lunch, school lunch offered. So I was making everybody lunches every day. And I love that. Like feeding people is one of my love languages. I firmly believe
Mm.
that. But we were in a court case with Matt's ex-wife, and she was saying that I was withholding food from the kids' lunches. So we're at this point where she's accusing me of this. It is in court documentation.
Jeez Louise.
And there's like big accusations being thrown around. And I'm like, this feels horrible, to the extent that she's showing up at the kids' school and checking their lunches every day
Oh my
to make
God.
sure I am putting food in their lunches. And this came from the kids saying I didn't put candy in their lunches the day after Halloween, but I did my daughter's. And my daughter didn't go to school the day after Halloween because she didn't have school. She was in a different school. So it was like this whole crazy thing
Yeah.
that got blown out of proportion. But I told Matt as soon as these kids were in a school where there was lunch served to school, I was no longer ever packing them lunch unless they came to me and asked for it and whatever.
Yeah.
And from the outside looking in, I sound like a real jerk. If you don't know, people are like, you are packing lunch for your daughter and your husband because, again, I loved doing that.
Yeah.
But you're not packing lunch for your stepkids, evil stepmom, like right there.
Oh.
And so that is the view, and probably what was being said at me, because then I wasn't withholding food from the kids. I was refusing to pack them a lunch. Now I'm an even bigger, what? And so,
Mm.
but you know what? It doesn't matter because I knew why I was doing that. And
Right.
I knew that in this process of doing this, of releasing these little things that were actually huge things along the way, everybody felt better. And so, really, when we trust what it is we need and we act on it and we release that should of what we should be doing, it creates more peace. We talk about dysregulated nervous systems. This is why. But it's in those like, I'm going to set these little things. I am going to release this idea that I have to make a huge meal every night because it is stressing me out. I'm going to release this idea that I have to do these elaborate workouts every day because I can't physically or emotionally do it. Like all of these things that we think are little and they're massive.
I think that is a great example of how sometimes you don't even know that you need a boundary until something happens, right? Like sometimes
Hmm.
people like, "Oh, what kind of boundaries do I need?" Maybe you can't think of them all right now, but
No.
one thing like that to happen, you couldn't even see that coming, that was gonna
Mm-mm.
have to be a boundary for yourself and your family and everything.
Yeah.
So let's get into more of the should stuff, because what if somebody's tuning in and they don't really use the word should, but we know it's a should, right? So, like, what other things might people be saying to themselves, or what other words or phrases might they be using that is kind of a, if you just,
Yeah.
lift up the cover a little bit, is a big old should.
I have to. I
Yes.
have to. Is the other thing that I'm like, when a woman says that or an individual says that, I'm like, okay, but do you really have to? Like, why do you feel you have to? What pressure are you putting on yourself when you say, I have to? I was talking to this woman the other day and she's like, well, but I have to do this. And I want to do this too. Like, I enjoy doing the whole mom thing. I think she has 9 kids. I
Oh my
love the
gosh.
mom thing and I have to do it this way. And I'm also on the like an elected official on the school board in their town. And I'm doing this and I really love this church volunteer thing that I do. And so there's nothing to drop. Sometimes the things that we think are bringing us joy are also stressing us out. Is this something you actually want to do and can carry right now? Or is this something that is taking you out of where you need to be focused? What are the things that we actually want to be intentional about picking those up? There were
Right.
things that I'm like, I'm never going back to that. I thought it was bringing me joy. It was just bringing me added stress. Like, yes, there were moments of joy in it, and I might have enjoyed it while I was at the thing doing it, but leading up to it, it was like I could feel my body stressed out because there was too much going on. Is it something you really want to do and why? If it
Yeah.
feels stressful, I always say if there's like a hesitation, even if it's something you really want to do, you trust the hesitation and say no. It will still be there if you're ready for it. But I've found time and time again that if I trust that hesitation and say no to something, the day of like the event or the volunteer thing or whatever, the lunch with my friend that I was like, this doesn't feel right. I'm sick, or I have a sick kid at home, or something else came up and I was like, oh man, now I don't have to cancel with my friend because I trusted the hesitation. And it's so weird that
Yeah.
like something in us knows something's telling me something here. My body, the universe, God, source, whatever you align with
Yeah.
is telling me something and I'm going to trust it.
Sometimes you're deciding between all things that you love or enjoy. And
Yes.
in those instances, I've personally had to ask myself, what do I enjoy or love doing more or the most? And that does mean removing something or several things that I actually like off my plate. For
Yeah.
example, I really enjoy the work that I do, but enjoying my free time is always going to win over work that I enjoy. So if I'm thinking about adding something to my plate, I ask myself things like, what will I gain from this? And what will this cost me? This will cost me time with my husband and friends and family on the weekends. On the other hand, it'll earn me more money, or I'll get some kind of, professional accolade or something because of it. Instances like those, my weekends are always going to win almost every single time. Exceptions are things like short-term projects where, maybe my evenings and weekends are not going to be busy forever, stuff like that. And that wasn't always the case for me, especially, before I got married. When I was very career focused more than anything, questions like that would have ended in a very different decision. So you can still use the same or similar processes even as your wants change as well.
Yes.
What about like, I gotta do this because
Yeah.
so and so will be upset? The kind of obligation or guilt that we feel maybe on based on somebody else's reaction. Who is the person in your life that's the hardest to shop for during the holidays, birthdays, really any time of year? I have been told that I am actually that person. I'm a minimalist, so I like quality, functionality, something that's ethically sourced. When I purchase a new gift for myself or someone else, I prioritize all of those things as well, which is why I love Cozy Earth. They have incredible everyday essentials like comfy loungewear and bedding. I have their bamboo stretch knit pajama set in one of my favorite colors, olive green. It is the softest thing that's ever touched my body. Cam and I are obsessed with their bamboo sheet set. They are 100% viscose from bamboo fabric, so it's very breathable. We have never felt sheets like this before. These are such practical, thoughtful, high quality gifts that can be enjoyed every day, all year round. Seriously, we spend at least a third of our lives in PJs and in our bed. Sometimes more than a third of your life if you're a homebody like me. Cozy Earth also offers a 100-night sleep trial, so you can try their sheets out, and if you don't love them, you can return them hassle-free. Trust me, you will not want to return these things. And they also provide a 10-year warranty. Right now, you can stack my code HELPLESS, giving you up to 40% off in savings. These deals will not last, so start your holiday shopping today. I personally like to get my shopping done early. And if you get a post-purchase survey, be sure to mention that you heard about Cozy Earth on Self-Helpless. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth.
I mean, it is such a huge part of why we feel we have to do things or why we feel we should do things. And I think that the majority of us are conditioned to be people pleasers because that is a people pleasing thing, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Is if I feel like I have to, I have to do this because so and so will be disappointed because they'll think this of me. This
Right.
is the conditioning and the belief we want to release. Because if somebody is so deeply set on you showing up a certain way and they will only approve or accept or love you if you show up that way, that person is not meant for you. And
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, that might be your mom, that might be your dad, that might be your sister, or somebody you deeply care about and seek their approval. The more you lean into that, the more disconnected you are from yourself and the more bitterness and anger and resentment you are building towards that person. So if
Right.
you stop doing those shoulds, you might be able to have a good relationship with that person in your relationship. I call it perfect partner syndrome, but it transfers out to all sorts of things like perfect, perfect daughter, perfect sister, perfect friend, perfect whatever. It's in releasing that idea that we then get to have that peace and calm. We create that safety to be ourselves. And we understand what is safe in this relationship because there are relationships where you're not going to be safe to be your whole self, but you know which parts of you are safe to be. And it might be a relationship you want to keep. And that's okay if that's what you want. That
Right.
doesn't mean you're not being true to yourself. It's actually, you are being true to yourself because you are only allowing that person so much access to you, the parts that feel safe. So, first step is I call it be gentle, where we learn to see the shoulds and not judge them. And the second step is exactly what we're speaking to here, what you're asking me about. And I say it's be humble. And people hear that and they're like, oh, so you want me to be a doormat? You want me to be self sacrificing? And I'm like, no,
Mhm.
we are going to still be proud of ourselves. We are going to show up for ourselves. This is releasing our ego that I need somebody's approval, that I need that proof. It's where we release all of that ego that is speaking to us and understand what it is we really want. We get really curious about who we are, being gentle with ourselves, and then getting to know and understand ourselves without that ego. Those are 90% of the process in making decisions. 10% is taking the action and then understanding the information on the other side of that action. If we understand who we are and what it is we want, we can make those more quickly and in a way that serves us, serves our families, and all those things. And that we're not doing it worried about what anybody's going to think or feel because we aren't responsible for that. You could be the nicest, most kind, gentle person and say something in the most loving way, and somebody else isn't going to hear that. You're going to say things that are going to piss somebody off and you can't control that. It might make complete sense to you and be done with the most love and respect for this other person, and they might not be in a place to hear that, and that's not about you, that is about them. It's deeply conditioned into us to hold that and to feel responsible for that. And so we have to go through this process of learning how to release that. And it's going to take a while because it's been a long time that we've been holding that we've been, conditioned to believe that. And if you've had any sort of trauma or abuse or anything in your life, it takes longer.
It's really amazing that so many of us don't realize like how big of a role that internalized shame makes in our decision-making process. And I know that there's been
Yes.
times in my life where I've had to kind of pretend and say to myself like, okay, let's pretend that nobody would be upset by any like whatever decision
Yes.
I make here. Let's pretend I wasn't going to feel guilty about it. Like everybody was good. What would I actually want to do? Right? Not weighing all these other opinions and feelings, and even like what you were saying about failure, like making it.
Mhm.
I've had to take the emotion out of like, oh, this did not go the way that I wanted. What if I looked at it as collecting data? Like, what did I actually learn from
Yes.
it? What if nobody's thinking about this at all except for me? Right? Like, we have to like trick ourselves into giving less shits, I guess,
Yes.
about everybody's thoughts. Right? I was listening to one of your podcast episodes, and you mentioned going to some kind of an event where you were a vendor and you were inviting people in to kind of think about a decision that had been weighing on them. Or
Yes.
can we talk a little bit about that experience? Because you had mentioned that you didn't even know what decision that they were thinking about, but it was super impactful to just help somebody bring awareness to that. So, yeah, anything that you want to share about that day?
Oh my gosh. I loved that event and setting like I had set up a decision making booth at
I love
at
that.
this event instead of a fortune teller booth, and I like dressed up like I looked a bit like a fortune teller but still in my style and whatever. Because we want somebody to tell us what to do. These women would come to me and I'd just say, think about a decision you need to make. Like, is there something you've been sitting on for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year? And I'd take just like 10 seconds of silence and let them think of it because I didn't have a lot of time with these women. This was like in less than a minute that we would be going through this, maybe 2 minutes. And I'd say, okay, I'd give them a t shirt. I had 4 different styles of t shirts, but so many of these women would leave my booth in tears
Wow.
because there was just this acknowledgement of what they wanted. When we come down to that, of like asking ourselves, what is it that I want? So many
Yeah.
women cannot tell me. They can tell me what they
Yeah.
don't want. I don't want people to be disappointed in me. I don't want this thing to happen that I'm creating in my head. I don't want this. And so when we allow ourselves just this moment of safety to actually feel what it is we do want and to acknowledge that, there's so much power. I went through 200 women in that line of doing
Wow.
this over
Holy
like 2
shit.
days.
Yeah.
And I mean, half of them left with tears in their eyes. We want to feel seen and we want that permission the t-shirt said things like, I can trust what is within me. My gut knows the way. Different things like that. We want that permission
Yeah.
to just know that it is okay and it is safe. And I am going to be okay on the other side of this no matter what happens, and the permission to then go act on it. Now, I always tell women, I'm like, I'm not telling you to go get divorced today. So many women, this is the question that we're navigating. Do I
Mm.
stay in a relationship? Do I leave? I'm not telling you to blow up that relationship because sometimes I think there is value in saving it. I went back to my husband and saved a relationship that on the outside looked completely flawed and a mess, and I didn't feel good in. And also, I knew there was something there. Make small decisions to get us the information that we need to know whether it is safe and healthy and supportive to stay, or is this something I need to leave? I do this a lot with careers and business decisions. Do I stay in this environment? Do I stay in this job where I feel unfulfilled and it is life sucking, but it's paying the bills? But
Yeah.
also there's this thing calling to me and I'm like, what if, like, let's dive into that thing. Let's gather information. Let's find out if this really is safe for you to do. And creating that safety is huge.
Yes. It doesn't have to be black and white. You can
Yes.
ease out of something while easing into something else. Or I even realized that I have often been the one making my job more stressful than it has to be with self-imposed tasks and deadlines. And, you know, when I just do what is required of me or I just focus on the basics, it's way more manageable. But it's when I feel like I have to do a bunch of extra credit all over my work and life duties, that's when I get chronically stressed. So
Yeah.
I've had to ask myself things like, is the job stressful or is my relationship with the job stressful? Maybe it's one, maybe it's both. And again, what do I have control over and what do I not have control over in this situation? Can I make this a better situation for myself by getting rid of this self-imposed pressure? But especially as someone who was almost always a straight A student, I more often than not did any extra credit that was available. I turned, assignments in early sometimes. Like that shit can carry over to your professional life, and those habits can be really hard to break. And sometimes you truly need to break those things if you don't want to keep burning yourself out or even moving from job to job thinking it's the job that's too demanding, when maybe it's yourself that is too demanding of you. So that has been a very hard lesson for me to learn, that I can just do my job description. I can just do the tasks that were agreed upon, and that is enough. And I often find that I actually do better work, obviously, when I'm not stressing myself out by doing too much or more than what's asked of me. Um, and the quality of that work gets noticed versus if I'm doing a bunch of stuff and I can't really do the quality that I would like to because I have, too many irons in the fire, basically. It's just a win all around when you can turn off as much as possible those perfectionistic, overperforming tendencies.
Yep.
You said something on your podcast about judgment that has forever changed my brain and the way that I see judgment when it comes to making decisions. And it was something about, when we judge other people, if you ever want to make that same decision yourself, you are going to judge yourself and you might not even be aware of it, basically. And that really resonates with me a lot right now with something I'm going through. Is I
Mm.
realize that I'm not making a certain decision because I have been judgmental in the past about people who might make that same decision. So that really fucked my shit up this morning. Thank you. Can we talk if you anything that you want to expand on there?
Oh my gosh. I have so many people who are like, if I was in that situation, this is what I would have done. And that's what we do.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
project what we know and what we think would feel safe and good to us onto other people, even though we've never been in that situation. When we stop placing that judgment on ourselves of what it is we want, what it is we need, what it is we really want our life to look like. And when I say look like, we're not actually going off of what we want it to look like. We want it to feel a certain way. I say, like, what do you want it to look like? Now let's go back to the feelings behind that because we can get to that feeling that we crave and want in so many different ways. It doesn't have to look one way. And
Yeah.
so, in this, when we release that judgment of how we think our life should look, how we think it has to look to have this feeling of safety, to have the joy, to have the happiness, we actually get to welcome that in because safety comes through logic in our brain and it's good. We need some of that. Like, hey, don't touch the burner type thing, because we know that's not going to feel good. But there's so much that our brains can't comprehend because we haven't experienced it. We
Mm.
haven't been in those shoes. So, like, we think, what if there's so much unknown? And I'm like, no, what you're actually afraid of on the other side of the decision is the known because it's what you can imagine happening.
Yeah.
And we aren't letting ourselves actually go into the unknown of what could happen and what could be out there. And that's why we're feeling a draw towards whatever the decision is. Like, that's why we're like wanting something that logically doesn't make sense to us because there is a part of us that knows there's something good on the other side. It might be
Yeah.
hard. My life has not been easy. There have been hard moments in the decisions that I have made, but they have brought me more peace and calm and joy and love and fulfillment than I ever could have imagined in my life. Like, if you had told me I would love and support my gay ex husband, that he would still be a beautiful part of my life 14 years after we were divorced, I would have laughed in your face. Like all of those things, that I would have a gay ex-husband, that he would have an affair with a man, that I would still love and support him, that I'd get like all of the things in my life, I'd been like, no way. Like there's
Yeah.
no way I am going to be happy in that situation. And the thing that I've learned most is that I want to be proven wrong about that. I want to
Yeah.
be wrong about the judgments I carried for my own life and how it would look. And if we can embrace that, then we get to open the doors to all this possibility. I always call it coming out of a box. We get to come out of this box that we put ourselves in.
Yeah.
And when we release judgment for ourselves on what actions we want to take, we start releasing those for our kids, which is hugely powerful of what their life has to look like, and start giving them power to trust their own intuition at a younger age of like, you know what, I'm going to support you in this. It doesn't go as planned. We're going to figure it out on the other side because it's just information. You haven't completely ruined anything. Like we're going to take this information, we're going to do something with it. We get to have that with our partners. My mom, who I absolutely love and adore, I don't go to her in the meat of like working through things with my husband because she always wants to make it my husband's fault. Well, he should do this. Like when we were in the thick of the crap with co-parenting and trying to figure out what we want in our relationship, she'd be like, well, Matt should do this. Matt should do that. Matt needs to take care of this. I have no control over Matt. And so it feels completely disempowering, but she's coming from her own perception of
Right.
what she thinks is helpful. But if we can step back and be like, first of all, I have no control of the other people. All I can do is show up for myself. We release that judgment. Like, I don't know what Matt is feeling. I don't know what has gone on in his life because I am not Matt. He can tell me, but I can't deeply understand that. So I can't place judgment on how Matt is parenting, how he's co-parenting, how he's making these decisions because I am not Matt. And
Yeah.
Matt is not me. And I want that same respect in my life, that he's going to respect the co-parenting decisions I make. He might have opinions about it, and he might express those opinions sometimes, but ultimately he comes back to supporting me in whatever decisions I make. That's the power of releasing judgment. And yes, judgment is such a natural thing, but when we can let it be seen in ourselves of how we're judging ourselves, we see it in how we're judging other people. And it makes our life a lot more fun and happy and enjoyable when we start releasing that as much as we can. And
Yeah.
it creates peace and ease that we never have experienced before. And it creates peace and ease for ourselves and also other people in our lives.
It's so easy to judge things that you've never experienced, and I feel like that could be the theme of everybody's 20s, like
Oh my
judging things
gosh.
that you know nothing about yet or know
Hmm.
nothing about in general, and it really hits you differently when you are in a position that maybe you used to judge about, and you
Yep.
thought you would know exactly what you'd wanna do,
Hmm.
and it made me reflect on when I was younger, judging certain people for a certain decision. I thought about those people again, like, do I still feel that way? And it's a no. Like,
Yeah.
I basically what I'm considering is like it has felt unsafe to not work, like overwork for me.
Yeah.
And do I actually feel that way still? Do I feel that way about those people who decided to work less or,
Yeah.
transition in that way? It just made me kind of release something that I didn't even know that I was holding on to. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Much appreciated. You also talk about identity and how identity can
Mhm.
really keep us stuck, right? Not letting go of something that is no longer really making sense for us. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think about my first thought about identity is I think of motherhood a lot. We have this idea of how we think a good mom shows up and what she does. Oh, I'm going to be the Pinterest mom. I'm going to
Right.
have these elaborate parties. I'm going to do these things. And this applies to whether you're a mom or not. But it's an easy way to kind of identify that like, oh yeah, it needs to be done this way. And if I don't meet these qualifications, if I don't show up in this way, I am not a good mother. And it usually goes with this good idea of, oh, I want to be a good employee. I want to be a good whatever. And we carry how that should look. We have it deeply
Yeah.
ingrained in us that there's only one way that this should look. When we feel this calling towards something different, it brings up a lot of things of like, but if I do that, I am no longer a good mom. I am no longer a good
Mm,
partner. I am no longer the good girl in my religion. Like I think that's been a big one for me my whole life of navigating of if I do this thing, I am no longer a good I grew up in the LDS church, Mormon, whatever. I'm no
yeah.
longer a good Mormon. I'm not a good individual. And so understanding how we reframe how we think about these identities. And if we it's still an identity we want to carry, then we have to rethink what it means about us if we show up in this different way. One of the things I think about a lot with identities is my daughter at age 2 taught herself to swim. She was like, she watched the Olympics with my parents. They were babysitting her. She's like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to the Olympics. Like age 2, it was so cute and funny. And by age 3, she could pass like the tests at the gym where you had to swim from one end of the pool to the other, like a full size pool.
Yeah.
And she had like taught herself and she carried this identity. She was on swim team at age 5. She was winning races. Like it was deep in her. And then she hit like 7th grade and she's like, I want to quit. And I was like, okay. And she went through this spiral of what it meant about her if she quit swim team. She's like, it's a waste of time. I wasted all of this time. And what are people going to think? Because I've been saying I wanted to be an Olympic swimmer since I was 2, and like all of these things. And I'm like,
Mm,
Penny, honey, these are all of the good things that came from you carrying this identity. You now have discipline. You took care of your body for years as a swimmer. Like all of these things are important and good. And
right.
now you get to apply them to the next identity, to the next thing you take on. And you're still a swimmer. It doesn't mean you have to release that completely. She now teaches swim lessons in our backyard during the summer.
Oh,
And I'm like,
nice.
you get to now take that and utilize it in different ways. And so
Right.
I think we get so hung up on how it has to look to carry this identity. Or if I release it, it means I'm a failure. And it's just not true.
We're always growing and evolving. It would be
Yes.
actually really strange if we were the same people we were at 2 years old. Really think about
Horrible.
that. It's a really
Yeah.
good thing that we evolve and we do new things. So,
Yeah.
let's say somebody is tuning in, they are aware that they have to make a lot of decisions right now,
Mhm.
whether it's they know they have to end a relationship, they need to find a new job, they have to relocate, they have to make new friends, they have to get their finances in order, whatever. It feels overwhelming and heavy, and it's very murky for them right now of where to even start.
You are going to pick one area of your life to start making a decision. And again, that could be something that seems totally like unrelated to all of these decisions you are making. It might be that I am going to decide what clothes I'm putting on my body that morning because you need to create the safety within yourself, the trust. You need to build that muscle to start making these decisions. Pick one thing that is sitting in front of you. I need to make a decision whether I'm staying in this relationship or not. I am going to start gathering information about the thing that feels scariest. Now, I am not talking about researching and like Googling everything. Like, that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about taking action to get information. So often, like, I'm going to use divorce example because it's easy. Like, I am going to reach out to a mediator to find out what information I would need to gather first. I am
Mm,
going to, and these are decisions, these are action steps so that we have the information we need. I am willing to have a conversation with my partner to tell them where I am at. Which feels huge. I know that one feels very big. I am going to get like financial information that I need if I do want to separate or get divorced, because then I have power. I am empowered because I have this information. And it is going to tell me, like, oh, I do actually have enough money to be able to divorce. Or maybe I don't have enough money, but I could have the resources I need if I did it in this way. So it gives us the information we need, but we have to take small actions. And I
right,
know sometimes they feel huge, but it's because we have put so many things that we feel we have to make decisions on all at once.
right.
And you don't have to. You need to pick one place and start taking action there. And then things start becoming more clear in every step of the process and in everything else in your life. Start with one thing, because if you don't, you are going to overload your nervous system, which is already feeling overloaded. That's why you feel like you can't make the decision. And that's the other thing is I'm like, let go of something. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to do it all. Don't like stop volunteering in your kid's classroom. I don't know, whatever it is in your life. Like release something so that you can have more space to think.
Starting with the thing that feels most doable or most accessible right now. Like it's okay if it just feels like the
Yes.
easiest baby step right now. And then,
Hell yes.
yeah.
Days I feel completely overwhelmed and I will literally be laying in bed thinking I have too much to do and I can't get myself out of bed to do anything because there's so many things. And I'm trying to start with the most important thing, the best thing to start. And I'm like, no, the key is to start with what feels doable. So
Yeah.
I will get out of bed and I'll be like, you know what? I can put that one thing on my dresser away. And then I'm going to allow myself to do not the most important thing, but the next thing that feels doable every time because it will create momentum and it will create clarity and you will start to see the things that need to get done. Does not have to be the most important thing. It does not have to be the biggest thing. Start with the small things. I have a coach that once said to smallerize things, and I've always loved that. I'm like, that's exactly what I do. And I love this made up word that we have now to do it. Like, pick something that feels doable and start there.
Jessica, thank you so much for everything. These have been great tips, whether someone tuning in has recognized that they've been putting a lot of unnecessary pressure on themselves, or perhaps they've been putting a lot of pressure on someone else, maybe a little bit of both. Where can people find your book and more information about you and anything else that you want to leave people with?
Yes. So you can find my book at shoveyourshoulds.com. And what I am doing, that's the name of the book, Shove Your Shoulds. What
Love
I am
it.
offering right now is the book is free. You pay shipping and handling. So you can go pick up the book um, because I firmly believe that this is where we change the world, we change our societies, we change our homes, we change all of those things for the better. And you can find me at Hey Jessica Frew. That is where I am the most active on Instagram. Those are the two best places to find me right now. Go pick up the book. Come follow me on Instagram.
Thanks for hanging out with Self-Helpless. Feel free to share this with someone who could use it, and you can binge related conversations linked in the show notes. Ad-free episodes are now available on Patreon, and because I'm practically allergic to social media, the best way to get notified about new episodes is to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or join the email list at selfhelplesspodcast.com, where you will also find some free goodies like a watch and read list and the quote buffet. All right, love you big time, and thank you so much.